2021 and 2022 were not the years that I think any of us planned for our travel experiences, but what it did give us is a lot of time to think about how to become better travelers, especially the day that we are never to hear the words pandemic and COVID in unprecedented times ever again. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Sojourner. Happy New Year if you're watching this in 2022. I help young, aspiring travelers with full-time jobs incorporate more travel into their lifestyle so that we can check off our career and our bucket list dreams. And today we're talking about how to become a better traveler. So tip number one that I've been thinking about a lot in the pandemic is doing more reading and researching the local culture and customs before we go. Now, I am someone who loves to plan. I'm a Virgo, but I definitely like to take my time to figure out the do's and don'ts of a destination. And I'm finding that with all the time we've been given during the pandemic, I've been taking even more time to look out and see what is actually out there. There's a ton of information on places that I have never even heard of that we can definitely be learning about. I think reading about the language and what's appropriate and what's not, what kind of body language is acceptable and what's not, are really good ways to set our expectations for a trip, just so we kind of know what to expect. You won't know everything, but with a little research, we can figure out a few things. Read up on where to go, where not to go, again, what is appropriate and what's not. And I do have a video, it's my first video on YouTube, about culture appropriation versus appreciation, so I will put it in whichever corner it normally comes up in, as well as the description box below if you want to know more about how to culturally appreciate a place when you go visit. The second thing that's come up a lot is insurance, in particular travel insurance. Especially when COVID first hit, people were, and rightfully so, very confused, didn't know what to do. There was a lot to learn in a very short period of time. And so I think investing in travel insurance is something that I will always do from here on out. I know World Nomads has travel insurance. I don't care if it's even protecting my flight or my train trip, but that little check box that you have to do when you book something. I think doing all of that all the time is going to be how I move in the future, and I think a lot of people are going to be thinking twice about traveling without some sort of insurance if you can afford it. There are cancellations left and right, and so being protected and hopefully getting some, if not all, of your money back is something that's been on the top of everyone's mind. Tip number three is really a life skill, but it's stay within your travel budget. I've been in a lot of travel Facebook groups, and people have been talking about going into debt while traveling. And while I'm all for splurging and treating yourself, I think it should also be within our limits. Travel is great, but we don't want to go into debt while traveling. If you're like me, you already have a lot of student loan debt, so you do not need credit card travel debt either. And write down your expenses, track where you're spending, how much you're spending on your trips, just so you know what to budget for your future self. And I think it's really important to create realistic and authentic budgets for you. So setting budget goals and intentions while you're traveling can definitely help prevent you from overspending. Tip number four is about researching and planning at least some parts of your trip before you go. Being in the pandemic and kind of seeing how quick things can change, having some sort of plan, maybe not every detail with the sunrise to sunset itinerary, that's not necessary, but having some things planned is really helpful to prevent overwhelm, just to give you a few ideas of what you may do while you're on your vacation. I don't think you need to plan every little thing, but going and searching, maybe this tour or maybe go eat at this restaurant for one of your meals are things to think about, just to do some preliminary planning, let's call it. And one of the apps that I use the most, probably the app that I use the most, that I've definitely talked about a lot on this channel, is Google Maps. And Google Maps is great because you can not only use it to navigate, which is really helpful since, that's like our modern day compass. It's also great to compile lists for your trips. So what I'll do is create a new list with the city or country that I'm going to, and then as I'm learning about new places, as I'm researching on Instagram or through travel blogs, Pinterest, TikTok, I'll add them and search them on my Google Maps, and from there I'll add them to my list. You can also leave notes when you add a new place to your list. So if you want to go to more Black-owned restaurant, note that it's a Black-owned brunch, a Black-owned shop, a Black-owned insert whatever it is there, so that you know why you added it to your list in the first place. Tip number 5 is something that I know I have said before and I've heard a lot of other people say, and that is that national or local travel is not traveling. And no, we're stopping that. I think a lot of times we always get caught up in the super long flights to destinations that are in reality inaccessible to a lot of people, and so we get caught up in all of that and say that if you travel locally or nationally, that's not really traveling. You can figure out how to travel and appreciate wherever you are. And so I think taking that mindset into future travels is something I myself am definitely going to be doing. Tip number 6 is to follow new people or local travel bloggers. And this is something that I have done in the pandemic that I really appreciate. For example, a place that's been on my list for a long time is South Africa. And a lot of the times we get our travel information from primarily US or European travel bloggers, or more of the quote-unquote Western or global North country, which means that we're all going to places that we all see on our feed as we're scrolling. But to kind of combat that, which also can help combat over tourism as we spread out to different places, is following travel bloggers who are local to the destination that you're visiting. So I followed a few South African travel bloggers who have shown me different parts of Cape Town and the surrounding areas, Johannesburg, etc., that I would have never seen or never heard of without me following them. And the last tip is to find ways to support local businesses while you're traveling. It is a common misconception that just because we're going to a destination and we're spending money, that the money is going back to the city or country that we are visiting. And that's not true. Unfortunately, that's not how tourism is designed. And I talked a little bit about this in my currency privilege video, which I'll also link in the description box. But our dollars are not always going to the people who we're interacting with or those who are serving us as we are tourists visiting in their homelands. And no one expects perfection, but I think it's really important that we find some sort of balance. So this can mean that if you stay in a hostel or hotel or a villa or resort that is not locally owned, try making all of your meals at small businesses and local restaurants. Just finding some sort of balance and payoff going towards people in the community and not big chains and corporations, which we can't escape because capitalism is here. So figuring out what we can do to make sure that at least some of our dollars are supporting people on the ground. So that is it. I know there are a ton of other tips I could have included in this video, but that's where you come in. So drop a comment down below if you have any other tips on how to become a better traveler. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified of when I post a new video, and I will see you all next time. Bye everyone. Stay curious.